On the morning of June 8th, 2021, thousands of people around the world woke up to what looked like an ordinary Tuesday. Drug traffickers in Spain made calls about shipments. A crime boss in Australia sent messages about money. Bikers in Germany coordinated pickups. None of them knew that in a few hours, over 10,000 law enforcement officers on 6 continents would simultaneously kick down their doors. They had been betrayed, not by a mole, not by a wiretap. They had been betrayed by the phone itself, the device they had paid thousands of dollars for on the black market, the one they believed was built by criminals for criminals. It had been run by the FBI the entire time. Every message, every photograph of a cocaine shipment, every murder plot. The FBI had been reading all of it for nearly 3 years. This is the story of how it happened. To understand what the FBI pulled off, you first need to understand the world they were operating in. By the mid-2010s, a shadow industry had emerged, a market for what were called hardened encrypted devices. These were not ordinary smartphones. They were modified phones, stripped of cameras, GPS, and browsers. The only function was a single encrypted messaging app. If police seized one, the device could be remotely wiped in seconds. They were virtually untappable, and the world's most dangerous organizations had made them their lifeline. The biggest player was a Canadian company called ANØM Secure. Its founder, Vincent Ramos, supplied phones to the Sinaloa cartel, the Hells Angels, and organized crime networks across Australia and Europe. In one recorded conversation, he admitted the phones were made specifically for drug trafficking. On March 7, 2018, FBI agents arrested Ramos at a restaurant in Washington state. He was eventually sentenced to 9 years in prison and ordered to forfeit $80 million. But within weeks, criminal networks migrated to the next service, then the one after that. The underworld's demand for secure communications did not disappear. If anything, the takedown had proven how much they needed these devices. It had made the market more desperate. That is when an FBI office in San Diego had a thought that would take 3 years to fully execute. What if, instead of chasing criminals from one encrypted platform to the next, they simply became the platform? Around the time ANØM Secure collapsed, a man known in FBI documents only by the pseudonym Athgu came to the Bureau's attention. He was facing serious narcotics charges. He had also spent years building deep connections inside the encrypted phone distribution network, the very shadow industry the FBI was trying to crack. More importantly, he had been working on something, a next-generation encrypted device, a new platform he believed could replace ANØM Secure. He had money invested in it. He had the contacts to distribute it. And now he had the FBI's full attention. The deal was straightforward in concept, breathtaking in its implications. Athgu would cooperate. He would finish building the device. He would activate his network of former ANØM Secure distributors and get the phones into criminals' hands around the world. And before a single device reached anyone, the FBI and Australian Federal Police would build a hidden master key into the encryption itself. A backdoor so deeply embedded that every message sent on the platform would be invisibly forwarded to a government server. The device was called ANØM, stylized as LAMOM. The FBI called their operation Trojan Shield. The engineering of the deception was meticulous. ANØM ran on modified Google Pixel smartphones, stripped of every ordinary function. To access the messaging app, you had to know to open a decoy app, a calculator, or a settings menu, and enter a secret PIN. The phone would then reveal its real purpose. Every message was encrypted. That part was true. What the criminals did not know was that each message also silently generated a hidden copy, forwarded automatically to what FBI documents called an iBot server. Every time, without exception. But technology alone was not enough. Criminal organizations do not trust strangers. They do not download an app because they see a recommendation. Trust moves through personal relationships, a chain of endorsements from people already inside the criminal world. So, the FBI needed respected voices to vouch for ANØM. AFGU reached out to 3 former Phantom Secure distributors in October 2018. People he already knew, people with direct relationships to serious organized crime. The first devices moved through those channels, and word began to spread. Then, something remarkable happened. The phones found their own audience. The early months were slow, a few hundred users by late 2019. But the FBI watched carefully, and what they saw was striking. According to FBI affidavit documents, 100% of ANØM users in the test phase used the platform exclusively for criminal activity. There were no innocent users, no journalists who had accidentally wandered into the black market. Every person who had paid to access ANØM was using it to traffic drugs, launder money, or coordinate violence. The operation was clean, and it was about to get much bigger. In 2020, European law enforcement struck EncroChat, a major criminal phone network. Thousands of criminals suddenly needed somewhere to go. Then, in early 2021, another network called Sky ECC was taken down. Both times, ANØM was waiting. Users flooded in. By May 2021, over 11,000 ANØM devices were active in more than 100 countries. Italian mafia, Albanian organized crime, outlaw motorcycle gangs, Asian crime syndicates, international drug cartels, over 300 distinct criminal organizations, all communicating on a platform the FBI controlled. The criminals were so confident they stopped using codes. Investigators watched in real time as suspects sent photographs of cocaine concealed inside cans of food. They discussed prices, routes, corrupt officials willing to take bribes. They planned murders. In Australia alone, AFP Commissioner Reece Kershaw later said his agency disrupted 21 murder plots, including a planned mass shooting at a suburban cafe and the planned assassination of an entire family of 5. Those 5 people are alive because when the killers typed out their plans on what they believed was an unbreakable phone, a government server received a copy. By early 2021, the operation was under pressure. An anonymous blog post appeared online questioning ANØM's security. Most users dismissed it, but inside the FBI, it was a reminder. The clock was running. Legal authorizations were expiring. The court warrant allowing access to the server data was set to lapse on June 7, 2021. June 8 would be the day. The coordination required was extraordinary. Law enforcement agencies across 16 countries had to receive their intelligence packages, secure local warrants, deploy their officers, and move simultaneously, not hours apart, not minutes apart, simultaneously. One early tip, and phones would be wiped remotely. Suspects would disappear. On the night of June 7th, more than 10,000 officers were in position around the world. At dawn on June 8th, they moved. Over 700 simultaneous raids, more than 800 arrests, in homes, warehouses, and offices across Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and beyond. In Australia, AFP officers in tactical gear hit locations across the country in pre-dawn darkness. In Europe, Europol coordinated sweeps through Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, and more. Within a single operation, police seized more than 8 tons of cocaine, 22 tons of cannabis, 2 tons of synthetic drugs, 250 firearms, 55 luxury vehicles, and over $48 million in cash and cryptocurrency. Across the full scope of the investigation, the totals climbed higher still. 12 tons of cocaine, 3 tons of methamphetamine, 300 firearms, $58 million seized, more than 50 drug labs dismantled, and over 150 threats to life prevented. At Europol headquarters in The Hague, FBI Assistant Director Calvin Shivers stood before cameras and said they had watched photographs of hundreds of tons of cocaine concealed in shipments of canned goods, and they had done nothing but observe, gathering evidence, waiting. The full architecture of the operation was as intricate as any crime it caught. The FBI could not host the critical server inside the United States. The Fourth Amendment would have applied, jeopardizing everything. So, the Australian Federal Police ran the first server node under Australian law. The FBI then received the data through a mutual legal assistance treaty routed through Lithuania, which issued its own court order permitting the transfer every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Every layer was engineered to survive legal scrutiny. The marketing had been equally deliberate. ANØM distributors, according to court documents, sold it with the slogan, "Built by criminals for criminals." It was, just not the criminals they fought. In the years after the takedown, the ripple effects continued. Dozens of corruption investigations opened across multiple countries, based on conversations ANØM users had about officials willing to accept bribes. Suspects were identified, extradited, and prosecuted well into 2025. Courts in Australia faced legal challenges about the operation's admissibility. The debate about where secrecy ends and entrapment begins proved nearly as complex as the operation itself. But the FBI had always said the deeper goal of Trojan Shield was not just to arrest the people on those phones. It was to destroy the idea that any such platform could ever be trusted again. Every criminal who now reaches for a black market encrypted device has to carry a new thought. What if this one is theirs? That doubt, quietly engineered into the criminal mind itself, may be the operation's most lasting achievement. 27 million messages, over 100 countries, nearly 3 years, and not one of the criminals who sent those messages had any idea. They had wanted a phone no one could crack. They got one. It just belonged to the wrong people.